What's up, everybody? We're coming back on the channel after last week. You guys told us in the comments how much you liked the trio from the Mars High Club, myself, Morin, and Paradise together. So we're back to give you some updates. A lot of the setups from last week have started to play out. So we need to give you guys a bit of an update based on the rejection that Bitcoin had and go through the current price action of the market. I'll be completely honest, I don't love the price action right now, but I'm very interested to see what Morin and Paradise say, because maybe they have a more granular perspective based on their technical expertise. So, we won't waste any time today, but make sure to subscribe, click the post notification bell if you want more of these, and let us know if you want this again next Wednesday. And Paradise, we can just jump straight into it and let you take it away with your Bitcoin analysis.
Yep, cool. So from last week, weekly chart, weekly trend, weekly 365-day rolling VWAP, so weekly chart for that. We bounced clean off them. We closed above the bottom band on the weekly noodle, so that's another tag into it. No closes since 2023 below it. In terms of where we're looking locally on this, I'll just go to a lower time frame, switch this on. So I think Morin and I and yourself are also pretty aligned on this level up here at 107.5k. This is kind of my line in the sand for that bounce to get capped. Basically, we had 3 weeks of value in here. Usually draws to TPO, but I'm just using the fixed range volume profile today. Pretty much aligns the levels, give or take. 3 weeks of bracketing there. We finally lost level, consolidated below it, sold off, formed new value down here, formed a 5-day composite. So basically what I was looking for was a push up, an acceptance back above 107.5k. And you can see we pretty much came up, and that was the Pico top right there. And it actually gave a very nice setup, something I shorted in the group, and something I posted on Twitter as well. So what it gave was effectively, we had the Monday high there. We came up, we swept it, we closed back inside. We actually had a couple of attempts to get back above it and couldn't. Actually flip to this chart. Yeah, just a more granular look at it. It's just marking out on my VWAP and profile levels. But you can actually see here, like we came to that level, basically a fair bit of initiative pushing into it, indicated by the high volume candle color. And we tried 2 attempts to get back above Monday high, couldn't do it. I've actually got to switch, switch Monday range on. Yep, so yeah, orange here is Monday high and Monday low. Effectively couldn't get above it, closed back inside. So I took a short there when we could not accept above it. Just had my stop above the local highs and rode that down to partial TP at the Monday low. But what I was actually looking for, was a stretch a bit lower, and that stretch was effectively this H4 FEG in here. Let's go to the 4-hour chart. We can see that FEG down there was pretty clean. It also lines up with a retest of the weekly VWAP, which we got. So we, came down, traded just under it, and now we're attempting to get back above, 7-day rolling there as well. But in terms of this, this is where I was looking to take the remaining profit on that if we couldn't accept back above the 5-day composite value. So this is it over here. So this value area high. Now we're starting to accept above it. I haven't actually taken full profit yet, so I want to see a proper candle close and acceptance above it. But this is where I'm looking to trail out if we start accepting back above that. And that's indicated by this line right here down the bottom, this darker gray line. Let's just switch off this for a sec. So yeah, in terms of sort of what we're seeing now, seeing a nice bounce. What I'm looking for is a sort of acceptance above that, that 5-day value area high. Then also this 7-week value area low, which Morin has put on my radar. It's basically a composite from way back earlier in the year. So effectively just acceptance above that, we get above here, and I'm just looking for a move back in the previous week's value area high from the VWAP, which is pretty much where we saw the initiative, like second leg down. So, we failed to get above Monday's high here on the subsequent reclaims. Then here again, once we lost the previous week's value area high for VWAP, you can see these retests here. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attempts to get back above it. Pretty much, that gave a second short opportunity. Once it closed below the market structure there, you could have taken a short on that close, stops at local high, and ridden it back down to this POI I've drawn out. So really not looking for much else other than just intraday picture right now. So in terms of like the high time frame, I think if we just flick back to this, I think in terms of where I want to see the market have a lift, it's just getting back inside that 107.5k level. That's pretty much the bullish line in the sand for me. Otherwise, I think there's still, plenty of opportunity to trade down to that 98k low that we mentioned last week. Also have this pocket of lows down here, maybe another tap into the 365-day rolling. I think we start to see alts pick up quite heavily if we start to get acceptance back in here. Until that happens, I just don't think it's, I'm pretty much just focused on BTC and ETH right now. But in terms of like this level here, if we go to something like the 12-hour, I think around like 110, 111K, give or take. That's this supply level up here. So if we start to break back inside the value area, I'm looking up around the POC, the point of control of that range also lines up with the supply level up here. So it's 110 to 111, give or take. So maybe some sort of sweep of that and rejection. And there's nothing to say we can't, accept back in here. We see a lot of people chasing. We get up here, we get capped by that move. We see a lot of people start shorting this. We can actually just effectively come back down and take out that 98K low. So, kind of if this and that scenario is just playing at level to level for now. But for me, I'm just really just focused on the sort of 30-minute, 15-minute time frame, just playing these intraday levels piece by piece as it goes on. Ethereum I won't really cover, has sort of similar scenario, but yeah, the charts are quite similar, and they both have this pocket of equal lows down here at around 100K, which also lines up with the previous week's value area low on the VWAP. So kind of another level I'm watching. If we do get a flush, I'm looking for it to come down here to around 100K as the next sort of POI on the way down.
I think where a lot of people mess up, and this is something I spoke about in my AMA yesterday, is they look at levels as absolutes. So they'll, mention 108K or 100K, and they treat the market quite linearly. Like, oh, if we break below 100, that means we're going lower, and if we break above 107, that means we're going higher. But I think the really important thing, and where this can materially change my thesis in the short term, is looking at not just the level itself, but how price reacts to a level. I mean, that's ultimately the most important thing. And if you look at, 107 to 108, as you can see here, that was a pretty bad reaction. Like, instantly have a big engulfing candle. You see a close below, the prior 4-hourly candle. And then you have a higher low, essentially, a lower high, essentially, that, ended up resulting in us coming back down to 103. So it wasn't the fact that, we interacted with 108. That was the main thing. It's how price interacted with that level. And it's showing me, at least, on the daily chart and even on the weekly chart, that the market isn't really ready for a full reversal yet. And if it is a full reversal, it's probably sell the news until proven otherwise. And that's something I also posted in my Discord like 5 days ago. I said, every move to the upside is probably sell the news until we get, a proper reaction to these zones and start to show like real acceptance above these zones. So that's kind of where my bias is sitting right now.
Yeah, I mean, levels mean nothing without seeing participation around them. Like anyone can draw a support resistance level and stick to it like it's glue. But, if you don't see the participation around it, like it doesn't mean jack. But, we can just draw this for what it is, right? Even if you just draw a simple support resistance flip, that's all this level is right here. So, I was doing a more granular thing, looking at the flow on like lower timeframes, as was Morin. He called a short, pretty much the same level. But, it's pretty much just a support resistance flip, right? We came down. Effectively, it could have been a deviation if we closed back above, but we didn't. We rejected here. So therefore, we're just stuck in this range. This is just a range. This is a range up here. It's just different value, right? Value up here, value down here. Now, if we break back above, maybe break back an old value, and then we can look for a mark up. But until that happens, it's just a range. Get to treat it like a range till proven otherwise.
Yeah, 100%. And if I can just show my chart very quickly as well. I'd just like to, speak a little bit about the weekly. What I don't like about the weekly here is the fact that, every time previously that we've retested it back in August 2024 and back in April 2025, we've had quite a quick reaction. Like you can see here, there's two very strong candles in reaction to the breakdown on the noodle. This happened again in April 25, where you had like two really strong candles, which took us above the previous weekly high within 2 weeks. Now, of course, it's too early to call right now because we technically have a chance to, close above this week and close green next week. But there's a lot of work to be done. It would essentially assume that we would need to close 3% higher by Sunday and then have another positive week after that in order to like assert a reversal. So basically what I'm trying to say in layman's terms is the reaction to this zone is the weakest we've ever seen it. Like the previous reactions to the noodle, in my opinion, were a lot stronger. And that's obvious on the chart, and we could go even more granular by going down to the 4 hour and actually look how structure worked its way out of these zones in previous retests. But this one is like, I think objectively, and you guys can speak to this as traders, probably the weakest one we've seen, which just makes me think maybe there's more downside. Of course, I'm open to the idea that we reclaim 108 as we discussed there as kind of the line in the sand, and we work our way out of it. But that's not going to be my default bias, just given what I'm seeing on the weekly chart. And I think if you even go onto my simple range chart here on the daily, you can also see we rejected off the bullish pivot, same zone that you had outlined, Paradise. And this is also like a lot of reaction to 100K. So if you look at the last 3 times we retested 100K, we reclaimed pretty much the downtrend in like a day. So, it was just a quick wick down, reclaim, quick wick down, came back up, quick wick down, came back up within a day. This time, it's already been like 8 days of sideways chop at support. So the reactions previously to 100K were like, we would just wick down, and there was clearly a lot of demand in that zone because we would bounce up and have huge rallies out of that zone. This is like the weakest reaction I've seen to 100K since we held above 100K in May. And usually, and it's the same for resistance, the more time something tests the zone, the higher likelihood it has of breaking down. I have a bigger macro thesis, which I'll get into in future videos. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I still think there is one big more bout of liquidity to come into the market, and that should see Bitcoin go higher. But in terms of positioning for the shorter term, I can't, look at the weekly chart on Bitcoin and look at the daily chart on Bitcoin and ignore like the weakness in terms of its reaction through these, pretty key high time frame levels. But I'm keen to know if you guys are thinking similarly based on your charts as well.
I don't want to take too much time from Morin, but just to add to that, I like to think of like a bouncing ball analogy. Like you throw a ping pong ball and you see it sort of lose momentum on each subsequent bounce. When we first flipped the rolling VWAP, and I'm just going to use the rolling VWAP for this, even though the money noodle looks the same. The first test, we had basically a 246% move after the flip. The second retest, we had a 125% move off the, when was it? August 24 flip, retest, I should say. Then this one was basically a 69% bounce. So the bounces are getting smaller on each retest. That's why I've been saying, like in my videos on my YouTube, I think, we're getting very, very late into this cycle. That's why I'm more conservative with things. But, what's this bounce going to give us? Is it going to give us half of that? It seems to be halved every time, maybe 30%, which takes us to around 130K, give or take. I don't play those speculations, just a lofty target, but just basically showing the momentum is stalling each retest. So there's like support getting weaker in each retest, effectively dynamic support. So I'm interested to see how much we push up if we do, whether we make a new all-time high again. But just the sort of brilliance in being like a level-to-level trader on smaller swings or intraday. You can kind of just extract the value you need and not pay too much attention to this. But let's throw it across to Morin anyway.
One of the things I wanted to just touch upon first is what you talked about with the noodle. So for me, I don't necessarily use the noodle in my own system, but what I use is just a set of 1225 EMAs, and especially on the weekly time frame. Now, you can see here, these are the EMAs, right? They're green. They cross green back in 13th of Feb. But the point to note is what you talked about, right? So for your noodle, it's price just retest the noodle, right? And you're getting the bottom of the wicks. Now, for me, with my bands, they're more responsive, which means that they're faster. Therefore, price can trade below them repeatedly, which you see here, right? And one of the things that I don't really worry about too much is, for me, like when I look at the weekly bands, it's just to get the context, right? Like for me, I can clearly see, price is in an uptrend. And like, yeah, we had these anomalies, right? Where price traded below. But what we had was like, yeah, price traded below the bands, but then doesn't make me bearish because, where is price trading into? And then in this instance, we were trading into a daily demand. And then in this situation, we were trading back into the previous range highs, right? And now in this situation, right, the level I'm looking at is, again, that 98, so 95 level that I covered last time on stream. So it's less important to me. It's like, okay, price is trading below, but more like, okay, well, what do I expect? Well, if this is going to be my key range low, right, where we have the demand zone, then what I would like to see, or what I anticipate, is a rotational environment. So it's just me looking to play whatever the range is, right? Probably price just ranges from 98s. We can maybe push back up to 110s. And those are pretty much the levels that I covered before. So that's how I just use the weekly to kind of just shape, all right, what's the high time frame trend? What's the context, and kind of what are some of the setups I want to trade? And in terms of setups, last time we were on stream, one of the things we talked about was the long at 98K, right? So if we just have a look at the chart here, if we play it back quickly, one of the things I wanted to see was price coming down. We take out the 98K low, reclaim the level, and that would have been my trigger to long, right? So this low right here is the one I wanted to see taken. Now, unfortunately, if we just play it forward a bit, you can see that we had an initial push down into 99s, high 98s, but we never took out this red line, right? That swing low. And then price started to come back down. Now, I covered this in the Discord where one of the things I wanted to see was to execute was a sweep of the low. So we take out this local low as well as the high time frame low at 98, followed by a reclaim. But again, that is not something that we ended up getting perfectly. But what we did get was price front running the low. Now, one of the videos that I actually recorded yesterday for the trading school was a video on patterns, and not your typical patterns that you see all over on Twitter or YouTube, but actual patterns that I use in my own trading. And we covered a topic called variance. Now, variance just means that you can have these patterns such as a double bottom, right? Where you're like, okay, well, this is my normal double bottom. Where price comes down, we have these equal lows. But yes, that's a double bottom, but then there's also a double bottom where price can come down. We can have a push and really take out this low and then reclaim as opposed to equal lows. And on top of that, there's a double bottom where price can come down and front run the low. Now, these I would all categorize as double bottoms. But the reality is, as a trader, when you're looking to execute, you don't know which one will happen. But you can use tools like order flow to anticipate which pattern is going to unfold. And that's what I did in the Discord, where as I saw price start to push down, I was looking at the open interest, and we can see, all right, on the first leg, we had open interest rising and the CVD going down, right? So it's new shorts opening. Then on the final puke, we had CVD down, open interest down, which was longs puking. So you have all these like new shorts opening, longs puking. But if you're having a look, price is still holding the level. And not to go too into detail, but just pulling up the footprint chart, you can see that we had around 140 million negative delta getting absorbed, right? And then 14 million, 9 million, 7 million, 13 million at the lows. We had a lot of absorption taking place at these levels and huge spikes in volumes. And once I saw that, and then as well going back to my template that I talked about a bit on the previous stream, we had that absorption as well. So I already saw this absorption on the footprint, but getting that extra confirmation on the Delta template was telling me like, okay, this is likely to be a front run. And I don't see these often, especially with absorption. But when I do see them, I'm like, all right, well, this is just variance, and it's time for me to take that trade. So in the end, I managed to squeeze a very good entry, right? Don't mind the ticker. This was just for the bears at the time, shorting the lows, as we all know. But I managed to enter around 100.3K, and I still hold this position. So if I just pull on the tool here, you see this is the entry that I have. Now, Paradise took a great short, and we were actually talking about it live when he when he took the short. I was telling him higher because I still wanted to close out my long, and he was like, no. But with my long, what I did was, when price came up to that Monday high, and as Paradise said, there was a lot of confluence, and one of the confluences that I had was in my prep that I talked about in the Discord. If we see here, this is just a TPO chart, and this orange line that I just extended is just a naked point of control, right? So where time spent the most amount of time, where price spent the most amount of time. And when we pushed up into that level, that was my first sort of trouble area. We had a set of poor highs on Tuesday and the naked point of control. So I knew that even though I wanted higher prices, that this level had to be a level that I look out for and that I need to be cautious about. So once price swept it, I did go to sleep. And then when I woke up and I saw the amount of absorption that took place, and again, let me be quite quick with this, and we can, again, have a look at the footprint, and you can see all of this aggressive buying, right? 8.6 million, 14 million, 22, 24, 18, and then on this final push, 31 million buying pressure, but price closes below. So once I saw that when I woke up, and it was around 6 a.m., I just clicked on I just opened a short to hedge my long. So right now I'm in a position where I've locked in all of the gains up until this point on my long position through the hedge. And in reality, at the moment, I have no clear intraday bias, and I don't really care to have one because, again, my edge is just trading those extremes. So I would still very well be interested in price coming back down and then sweeping these lows and then looking for that long up into 110s. And I would still very much like to see a push up into 110s, where if I see that same level of absorption, I would enter my short below the supply zone, stop loss at the high, and then target these lows, right? That's if we push up prior to taking out the lows, you know. And there actually is a fractal that I haven't shared yet, but I will, and we can have a look here. It's something that I was just messing around with yesterday, and I found it very, very interesting. So if we go back to 2024 in December, what we had was, you know, price coming down into like a range low, right? And then if we have a look at it, price front ran the first swing low. We made it so double bottom, but we front ran the low. Then we ended up having to push up higher, right? Took out a high, came back down, took out all of the lows, right? Including these equal lows, and then had a big push up, okay? Before coming down. So what I wonder is, this looks quite similar to what could be happening here, where, you know, we have our range low just about here. Let me just change this up a bit, make it a bit brighter. We have our equal lows, right? So the question I have is, okay, that's our supply zone. Could we see something where we push up, come down, take out those lows, and then get that push up into the supply zone before another push lower or higher? Like, again, this is all really speculation, but one thing I love to do is kind of identify, you know, what's happened in the past, what are the similar patterns, price action, the similar flows. And I have found that, you know, by understanding and figuring out these similar patterns, that I can look at the flows and then try and anticipate in real time, you know, what's likely to unfold. So I just thought that's something I didn't really see anyone share on the timeline. That's sort of a front running the low, making that double bottom, and then possibly coming back down. So that's really the setup that I'm going to be keeping an eye on in the future.
That's really good analysis. I like that. Paradise, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, nothing to add. We're pretty much aligned on the levels, high time frame. I think many people are. So, yeah, I don't do nearly as much flow analysis as Morin does, low time frame, but I'm mostly an altcoin trader. So I'm kind of at the moment just trading BTC. But yeah, I think in terms of like key levels, we're all pretty much looking for the same thing, give or take.
So what about alts? You know, you're an altcoin trader, and you know I have an altcoin portfolio, and obviously what Bitcoin does is affecting the rest of the market. Like, at what point are you more? I mean, I still see you in the Discord, you know, opening altcoin longs and scalping stuff here and there. But at what point do you shift focus again? Is it when Bitcoin, you know, accepts above 110? Is there like a certain thing that you need to see to be like, all right, you know, this rotation could kick off again?
Yeah, kind of just really enjoying trading BTC at the moment because it's just very clean levels. Obviously, you know, it's respected as well. Respecting the levels quite cleanly. Whereas altcoins, like, you're getting your outlier pumps on the day and then they're just dying like 24 hours after. We saw Uni yesterday. Uni was all anyone could talk about. If you flip to my chart for a sec.
They announced the fee switch, yeah, and that got the market quite excited. And then
the fee switch is good. There's a massive move up. I said to the group that I was looking for the H1 noodle to be tagged inside the FEG. That was the Pico low there. It put in like a 20-something% move. And then it just rolled over straight away. Pretty much came into supply up here, but rolled over straight away. Now it's just, you know, trading along it. So, you know, even this retest, it was a nice move to catch the 20% if you took profit at the top, but nothing's really having that continuation past longer than a day. So for me, like, you know, what I said before is I don't think, you know, it's kind of two scenarios. We get that big flush of the lows at 98K. Maybe, you know, alts will absolutely look terrible there, but maybe ones with intrinsic value are worth picking up to add to your portfolio. If you think we're going to go up, you think the rolling VWAP, you think the weekly noodle is going to hold, that'll offer the best sort of spot buying opportunities. In terms
if Bitcoin does go down there as well, if it goes low, I think there's going to be really good opportunities for you know, 6 to 12 month positioning, because I still think, you know, from a macro perspective, we will get that next injection, and this will happen once the government comes out of shutdown and heading into next year, when I think there's a bit of it's a future show, but there's a bit of an AI arms race happening right now, and I think the only solution for the US to compete with China is to keep the liquidity tap on. If they try and go through a significant contraction phase in the next couple of years, you know, they're at risk of losing the race. So this keeps this keeps my thesis, I think, for Bitcoin, gold, pretty much any asset that is liquidity sensitive, quite strong. So I'm still hopeful that that will be the case, and that's kind of underlying my long term outlook. But obviously, short term, different story.
Yeah, in terms of short term, like I use Orion terminal, which is like a screener for volatility, looking at like 8-hour open interest increases, negative funding, try to catch short squeeze on things and that. Also looking at things that are basically just overextended on the day. So just pull up the
Can you
first
actually show
chart.
me? Could you actually show me ZCASH, because this is one that had a huge run. It's all anyone was talking about. It's now come down on some people's charts. It's actually had a breakdown. Interested to see if there's anything on ZCASH that you have identified.
Yeah, I'll have a quick look at it. Just in terms of where you said where I'm looking at alts, just what I said before. If we get back inside this value area, I think we'll see a lot of alts get the lift. I think that's where you can be tentatively taking positions, and then I think if we don't reject up here, we can actually break out of this, or obviously see a lot more. But I think until then, while we're in this range, you're just going to see people being skittish. Obviously, everyone got smoked on that 10-10 liquidation week as well. So a lot of people are once bitten, twice shy, as I said last week. But
it's going to take time, and Bitcoin
exactly.
needs to have liquidity flow before alts can run. So it's no surprise this is happening. But I also think this kind of deflation of asset prices can be great opportunities for people that have a bit more of a long-term mindset. I think it's actually quite exciting. I've seen some people in the group message me that they're excited because for the last 4 months there just hasn't been that many like asymmetrical opportunities on alts, whereas now that can be a very real proposition.
Yeah, I with ZCASH, I just think it's probably topped for now. My personal opinion, it's just rode the 4-hour trend the whole way up. Had this big blow off wick, came up, made a lower high. Now it's trading back under the noodle. If we look at something like the gold chart, it's very similar. I'm not referencing those two as being similar.
That's had a bit of a recovery because I think that
it has,
that narrative's coming back. Yeah,
but just in terms of the structure, massively respecting the 4-hour on the way up, we flip it, and then it's just resistance all the way down in every retest. So pretty much the same thing I'm seeing with ZCASH. I think a lot of people are basically DCAing just as it goes down, think it's going to bounce. Maybe it does. Not really seeing any sort of meaningful divergences form in a meaningful time frame. I think what actually happens is kind of like what happened with Altcoin in many such cases, but I think we actually probably get this. Maybe then we get the bottoming process where this flattens out, the noodle flattens out, and then, once we start to break above, the noodle starts curling up, we get that next phase, that next sort of regime up. But, I
could
think
you look at H12? Sorry to cut you off, but could you look at H12 noodle? Because this is one that I was following on the way up that gave me one partial entry, but not a full entry. And this is getting a retest now. This maybe paints a different picture.
Valid. Yeah, it's valid. But, like we said before, we need to see contextually what's happening at the level. So in terms of the H12, yeah, you've got I guess that is an H12 demand there. We did see a push away from it. We've wicked into the noodle there, but on lower time frames, that's the 12-hour. So for me, in terms of the matrix layers of the noodle, 12-hour and daily, I want to see either a 30-minute or an H1 reclaim, whatever's being respected more. 30-minute looks pretty good here. So 30-minute looks better to me than the H1 just because of the respect on the way up and the bearish respect on the way down. So in terms of that sort of matrix, I'd love to see this flatten out, this get above this, and you look for the retest of that to ride the trend back up. So maybe it happens here. You can actually see some sort of over-under setup happening, but just make a different color. Basically, this is a range low, had a deviation under it, came back up, retest, being pinched between the noodle and that level. So in terms of alts, in terms of ZCASH, maybe that break above would confirm it. But I've been teaching something a lot in the Discord lately. It's just something simple I've been teaching for a long time, but I won't go too long, so we're going to wrap up the stream. But it's quite simply here was a 4-hour demand. Oops. You can see we came down into the 4-hour demand and also the 4-hour noodle. What I like to do then, so I said the daily, I switched to the 1 hour for execution. On the 4-hour, switched to the 15-minute. It just gave a very simple setup, and you could do this time and time again. So once we came down, we reclaimed the M15. It lined up with a sweep into this breaker over here. So that's a confluence for a long right there. That put an 11% move before sinking under. Came back down to the 4-hour noodle, the 4-hour demand again. And then we got the same setup, an M15 reclaim, which lines up with an M15 breaker. And that gave a second entry. It did a 30-something% move. So, kind of what I look for now when altcoins are looking quite skittish and it's not just, throw a dart and make money, which hasn't been for quite a while. When it's coming into these high time frame levels like the 12-hour, I just want to go down to a lower time frame and see a reclaim of that local trend. And that gives me more sort of credence that we can take a position on that. There's nothing wrong with this. It looks quite good. Has been historically respected. But I don't know. I've just got weird feelings about ZCASH. I think it might be done for now, but we'll see. I think it might just range for a bit if it doesn't continue selling off. I don't think it's just going to be reversed back out. But this time next week,
I don't think there's a rush. I don't
words.
think. I just don't think, unless there's a short-term trading setup, there's a rush to buy. But I think it's an interesting one longer term. But I'll speak about that on another video because I'm still developing my full thesis around it. And that there are other privacy coins which haven't run that I think maybe are better to DCA and look, obviously have run a lot less, so maybe come with a bit less risk. But I'm doing a full deep dive later in the week on privacy for people, and obviously ZCASH will be one of the talking points in that video. But yeah, good to see your perspective on it.
Nice. Yeah, other than that, yeah, not much else to say. Just waiting to see how we move on Bitcoin over the next 24 hours. Obviously, NY session might be decent tonight if we can push up, already pushing up quite nicely from that level I mentioned, so we'll see.
Any closing words from Morin before we head off?
I think for me, these thoughts are pretty clear. You know, with the ZCASH, I kind of agree with Paradise. I think you should expect just chop or just nice range bound rotations. And the only thing I'll say is like I don't trade alts, right? That's Paradise is far better. I play in those rotations, but I know like what's funny to me when just trading BTC is I'll see these alts run, right? And I'll just see like these 30-50% pumps. And I'm just like, what the fuck's going on here? And it's just very like the books are very thin. And like when you see these narratives, like I'm sure ZCASH, the privacy is good. You got Monero as well. But it's like no one was talking about these on the timeline like for 5 years or something until they already pumped like 8x within a week. And then suddenly
it's an
like,
attention market, yeah. Like
yeah.
It's definitely a narrative based market. It always has been in alts. I think the only difference is, and I did a video about this yesterday on the channel, the rotations are just a lot quicker. So you used to see like an AI run be like a month, and that gave you some time to like, okay, look at the leader, rotate into betas. Because everything's so quick now, it's more of a game of like anticipating like a trend shift towards the beginning of a trend, and then, you know, trying to get out in time before it rotates into something else. But that's a hard game. So I feel like the skill gap has gone up. So for the average person, instead of focusing on that game, right now it's better to focus on like longer term structural narratives that probably aren't going to go away or get flows at some point in terms of altcoins. And then obviously, you know, if you want to play around with a smaller percentage of your portfolio, 10, 20%, by all means do it like I do it. But just don't like rotate your entire portfolio into narrative to narrative. Try and keep it a little bit more longer term focus. I think that's kind of what you have to do in this market.
100%. I feel like even for me, by the time I hear about a narrative on the timeline, like that's when most of other people will hear about it, and I'm like, it's already too late. Like you are gonna be the liquidity where all these guys who got early are gonna sell into. So it's like being able to find this stuff like very quickly is, I think, immensely difficult. You know, it's something I could play those rotations, getting in early, like the amount of time you have to spend. You know, I'm very happy focusing on my trading and letting Fabian take care of that stuff for the Discord.
It's harder, but you know, we can. What I like about it, what I find fun about the game is that on any given day, you can find your year's best trade or the world's best trade. So like, you know, there's been days where I had no idea I was about to wake up and make shit tons of money. Like, you know, launch coin that day was insane. But when I woke up and I saw ICM was heating up, and I was just like, all right, I have to max long the beta before the US woke up. And there was an instant 5x, or then, you know, even like the Asta trade, which was ridiculous. Like, you know, waking up and missing the trade, but still getting it at 40 cents and then going, you know, seeing a 5x in a day. Like these are the days where it's all worth it. But I guess the difficult part is there's months in between. If this is your strategy, right, and this is probably more so my forte than like order flow and charting, then, you know, there's going to be months or weeks where you don't have any of these kinds of setups, and you're kind of just, you know, playing in things just to have fun and keep yourself entertained. But you're not like actually going with size like me right now into anything with you know, high conviction. But then that could change at any point. You have to be ready for that day. So it could be tomorrow, could be the day after, could be the day after. That's also what I say to members in Mars High Club. Like, you know, there's periods where there's lots of trades, and then there's periods where people complain or they want more trades. It's like, I'm not going to force stuff just for the sake of forcing it. But when they come, they can be huge. And I think that's why if you're going to play the altcoin game, you actually can't afford to be reactive with the market. Like either you commit to it for like a 1 year period that you're going to be there every day, or you don't commit to it at all. Because it's the type of game where, you check out for a month, that could be the month where, your year's biggest trade happens. So that's just the price you pay for playing the altcoin game. You have to be committed. And I know most people aren't, because I see the views go down when the market's down. So if you're watching this, at the end of this video, you're probably a pretty committed person. But to all my other subs that aren't watching this, you've got to ask yourself why. Is it an emotional decision? Because, altcoin strategy would dictate it. It does pay to pay attention. But,
yeah, I think what you said about a few of these trades, those are going to make a big portion of your returns. And that's the same with even just your normal leverage traders, right? It's 10% of your trades, maybe even 5% of your trades will account for 80% of your returns. And what you said about like people come into I think a misconception is, I've had this a few times. Someone comes in and then like we all have like open Q&A channels. So it's like someone can just type me a message, whenever about anything about trading, and like
which not many other groups have, by the way. Like the fact that you can ask me a question directly, Paradise a question, Morin a question on a daily basis is not. I haven't seen many other groups that have that. And we actually reply. I don't outsource it. I even send voice messages. So times when people are like, surely Miles, you're not wasting time replying to everyone. And then I started sending voice messages. They're like, oh fuck, he actually is.
No, I'm pretty sure there was one group that that are like, all right, you can ask questions for like 30 minutes, and then we'll reply to you in like 2 days. And I'm like, come on, that's stupid. Like it takes fucking 2 seconds. Pull up your phone, you reply, help someone out. But to the point where it's like people would come in and they're like, all right, what's the next trade? What's the trade for today? And you're like, unless you're a scalper, or you got like a low time frame system where you have those frequent trades to take, like for someone like with my system, or like especially if you're trying to catch these like very high time frame rotations of these narratives, like they take time. They're not going to happen every day. You're going to get a new narrative. But it's like when we do get those setups, those are the ones that you want to size up on. And then when you see those returns and it's all that patience, it's a good feeling. But until then, it's really just committing, showing
and this
up.
is where sizing comes in as well. Like you have to know, and I think this is where a lot of people will screw up. Like you need to know what is a high conviction trade and what is a lower conviction trade. Like if there are certainly things I'm doing. Even I'm opening trades today, but I just don't have that much conviction in them. But I'm doing it because I like to stay engaged, and I'll take a 5-10K punt here and there on just random stuff. That's just the way I trade it. But then occasionally I'll go in with like big size, and I'll really commit to it. So I think it's about understanding, like, yeah, you could take a variety of trades. There's nothing wrong with taking a trade every day. It's just you really like, and this is where the skill gap is in trading and investing. You really need to understand when to go deep. And that is, I think, something people need to focus on, because people are so focused on absolutes. They look at like even like percentage strike rate more than overall returns. Like some altcoin traders that I know, they spray and pray. So if you look at their wallets, they're even on chain. They'll take like 100 low cap positions. 98 of them will lose, but then the 2 that win 100x, and it covers everything and some. So there's different strategies, and not every strategy is correct. You can be high frequency trader. You're just aiming for 51%. You can be, high time frame swing where you're aiming for a higher strike rate, or you can be like a lower strike rate trader, but go for the bigger return trade. So it all depends on your own system. But I think position sizing is the number one thing that's common and consistent across every system that you need to that you really need to refine. And if people haven't already, that's an area that I think we have a module on this in the course as well. That's something that I'll be focusing a lot on, because it applies for investors and traders.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let's wrap it up. But appreciate it. And if people like this trio, let's comment below, and we can maybe do it again next week. And I haven't even asked him yet, but I want to get Fabian on for a weekly thing, or maybe a fortnightly thing, because I really want to do a macro session with him. I want to talk about Chinese stocks. I'm buying some equities right now. I want to share this stuff on the channel, but I need like my macro buddy as well to discuss this stuff with. So maybe we can have that as a series as well.
Yeah, for sure. Fabian would be wicked. I'd love to hear his insights.
But maybe you could chart. It'd be kind of cool to have you on one time, either of you, to chart, to chart NASDAQ and stuff like that as well. Because
Yeah, for sure.
There's a little bit happening there, and it impacts crypto. Like I've got this whole thesis about energy and Bitcoin that, all of this impacts crypto. So I think to become a better investor as well, you need to understand where crypto is actually fitting into the global liquidity system. Because if you're just sitting there like, oh, why are my altcoins down? It's like, well, you have to reverse engineer, and it starts at the top. It starts with fiscal monetary policy, and it goes down to equities and yields, and then it goes down to Bitcoin, and then altcoins are ultimate risk. So if there's something wrong at the top, there's going to be something wrong at the bottom with your alts, and when there's liquidity flowing at the top, you're probably going to see some correlation in your alts as well. But yeah, anyway, for a future show, thanks guys.
Thank you. Cheers for having us.
Later.
Thanks.
Peace.